My name's Jim Skaggs. I'm the race director for the Antelope Island Buffalo Run, as well as a few other races that I put on. I've been doing this for about 13 years now. A little bit about myself. I'm married, been married for 38 years, close to 38 years. We have 2 kids that are grown and gone, 3 grandkids. My day job, I'm a manufacturing engineer for a company called JBT Aerotech. So the next time you board a plane at an airport and you go down that passenger boarding bridge, at the end, look for a little data plate that says Jetway. That was built here in Ogden. And we build about 90 to 95% of all the passenger boarding bridges here in the United States. I started running way back in 1987 as a way to get back in a little bit of shape. That was 10 years after high school, and the old 10-year reunion comes up, got to look good and all that kind of nonsense. Growing up, I was always on a swim team, and running was I guess a good alternative. I started out road running, ran my first marathon in 1987 after 8 weeks of training. Big mistake. I kept up the running just kind of off and on, stuck with roads for the next 5-6 years, ran a few races here and there. But in 1993, my wife and I were living in Arkansas, and this is pre-internet. And in the back of Runner's World magazine, they had a schedule, their running schedule, and I saw this 50-mile race up near Little Rock called the Wasatch Trail 50 Mile. And I thought, I've run a marathon, I can do that. So I started training and went up and ran that race, and it was my first ever trail race. I finished it, 11 hours and 8 minutes, walked the last 15 miles, drove 2 hours home, fell out of the car and told my wife I'd never do something that stupid again. So I kept up the running just off and on, ran a few marathons and all, and then I heard about this thing called bad water, and there was a local that was being profiled in the newspaper that was training for it. And then I heard about these things called 100-mile races, and I thought I should set a goal to run a 100-mile race by the time I turn 40. And life gets in the way, and so around 41, I thought, now we were living in Illinois, and I thought, I need to train for that 100 miles. So I found one in Ohio called the Mohican Trail 100. So I trained for it, and about the only person I told was my wife that I was going to do this, because I didn't want to announce it to the world and then get out there and fail miserably. If I failed miserably, I wanted to just slink off into the dark without anybody knowing. Anyway, so in 2002, I ran the Mohican Trail 100 and finished it. 27 hours, 45 minutes, paid dearly for it for about a week and a half, could hardly walk. I was hooked on ultras and trails. I immediately started looking for any local 50Ks I could find, 50 miles I could find. Went back to Mohican the next year, ran it again, PR'd by 5.5 hours, ran like 22 hours, still my fastest 100-mile time. What was really cool is that where I worked, we had another engineer there that had been to the Olympic trials twice, was a sub-220 marathoner, and when he heard that I ran 100 miles, he was in awe of what I did. I'm just an average runner. There's nothing special about me. And then when he heard that I PR'd by 5.5 hours the following year, he was in awe again. And it was kind of neat to have somebody of that caliber be impressed with something that just I did, you know. At any rate, I started my first race back in Illinois, and it's still going on. It's the Rock Cut Hobo Run. It takes place in Rock Cut State Park, just outside of Rockford, Illinois. I put it on for 1 year and handed it off, and I keep meaning to go back and run it, and I never have. So, and then we moved out here to Utah in 2004 for a job. And I heard about this place called Antelope Island. And when I came out for my job interview, I went out there. And as I drove along the road, there were these two huge bison bulls that I could have reached out and touched. They were just grazing alongside the road. And I immediately thought, this is the coolest place on the face of the earth. So I started going out there. I found out they had about 40 miles of trails, and so I thought, I'm gonna go check them out. So I started doing that. The following spring, I found out that they had this volunteer group called the Trail Patrol. So I joined it, and basically I was able to volunteer while I ran, interact with the public, answer questions, just generally be an ambassador for the park. I've been doing that now for 14 years, and I love it. I still do it all the time. In 2005, I got the harebrained idea to put a race on out there. Talked park management. They were a little skeptical, but they said, we'll let you do it. And so I put on the first Antelope Island Buffalo Run in 2006. I had a 150 runner limit, and I sold it out, which just shocked the hell out of me. After that, the park has pretty much just let me do pretty much what I want as far as putting on races out there. They've been awesome to work with, and I hope to keep doing it for a long time. So I've run, since that fateful first 100, I've run about 25 or 30, or completed about 25 or 30 100-mile races over the years. I've got around 70 to 75 ultra finishes so far. I've run Wasatch. I've started, this year will be my 12th start at the Wasatch 100, hopefully my 9th finish. Currently my favorite race. But there are a lot of races that I really enjoy running every year. I've actually only won one race, but that was the ripe old age of 56. I ran Pickled Feet 12-hour up in Boise. And for some reason, the stars and the planets all lined up. My training was good. And I just went out just to see what would happen if I pushed the pace, and I figured that if I fell apart, I fell apart, no big deal, but I never did. And I ended up with the course record, which has since been broken, as well as a first place finish at the ripe old age of 56. So that's my big claim to fame. I've done fairly well with my running. Even now, as I get close to 60 years old, I can still, if I have a good race, I can usually finish not middle or back of the pack, but I can get up in the top third or so. But the back of the pack finishes are happening more often now. Okay, some of my favorite trails around here, I have a few. Love to run up Ben Lomond. That's always a good one. Just local after work runs, just about any of the trails along the East Bench in Ogden here are nice. Love doing Indian Trail into the Ogden Canyon. Going up Wheeler Creek. Love doing that Green Pond Loop. That's our go-to trail in the summertime when it's hot down here. It's a little bit cooler up there, especially coming back down through Icebox. I don't hit too many of the trails down in Salt Lake just because I just don't have the time to get down there. But we've got plenty of local trails that are nice, that are fun. Another one, starting North Ogden Divide, trailhead and heading along the base of Ben Lomond. That's another good trail if you want something after work. Advice for new runners. My main advice would be to have fun. It's supposed to be fun. Enjoy it. Understand that it's hard work, but have fun. Don't compare yourself to others necessarily. Go out and do your own thing. Find some supportive friends that will run with you. There's tons of people out there like to run. You see all sorts of advice on the internet about runners. You know, hey, I've got an injury, what should I do? And then you've got 16 people that have 17 different pieces of advice. And you know, my thing is if it's serious enough to keep you from running, maybe you should go to the doctor. Someone who knows what they're talking about. That's what I do. Shoes, get a pair of comfortable shoes. Do you need trail shoes to run on trails? Not necessarily. Depends on the trail. I just learn from trusted sources. There's plenty of them out there nowadays. Those sources weren't around when I first started. I kind of had to do some digging and figure out how to train and all that. Understand that you are capable of far more than you think you are. My advice, if you want to get into ultras, just dive in. If you can run a marathon, you can run a 50-mile. Don't creep up on it. Just go for it. Get smart about the training. Understand that the training for a 100-mile race isn't necessarily much more than the training for a marathon. I run Wasatch on 45 to 55 miles a week at peak, and I finish it just fine. But yeah, have fun. It's supposed to be fun. So I got into race directing, at least here in Utah, because I wanted to share the awesome trails that I had discovered out on Antelope Island with fellow runners. And I thought, you know, it would be easy to put a race on out here. And of course, it's a lot more work than just being easy. But that's how I got started. I currently direct 4 different events. The Antelope Island Buffalo Run is by far my largest, and that's spread over 2 weekends, 2 weeks apart, with the 25-kilometer distance on one Saturday, and the 50-kilometer, 50-mile, 100-mile on this coming Friday, Saturday, and Friday and Saturday. In June, I direct the Logan Peak Trail Run up in Logan, Utah. And last year I started a race up at Harriman State Park in Idaho, 25K and a 50K. And I did that at the behest of the park manager. He asked me to do it. And I used to work with him on Antelope Island. But, and then also on Antelope Island in November, I put on a fall half marathon and 50K race. It's a lot of hard work being a race director. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's not a get-rich-at-all scheme. I basically make enough to cover my running habit, pay for a few entry fees for races throughout a year, buy a few pair of shoes here and there. But I do it mainly because I just really enjoy it. It's fun on race day to see it all come together and to see people out enjoying it and enjoying themselves, and to watch runners cross the finish line. So many times it's a first time they've done something like that, whether it's the 25K or the 100-mile, and just to see the joy and happiness on a lot of their faces, and just have them come up and thank me for putting it on so that they could come do it. That's probably the biggest motivator, is just that. And I get to hang out with 400 of my closest friends and drink beer. I mean, can't beat that.
about the discount code. How does one get one?
So I've made it a policy that I don't give discount codes. I know that's the in thing to do. Race directors do that and all that to try and drive entries. And my thought processes on that is that if you put on a quality event in a quality location, that will bring runners in. I tend to price my entry fees a little bit less than what the going rate is. And so if you go to my races looking for a sign-up page, looking for a discount code, just type in no discount code and see what it gets you. Inside the tent, so if you want to make your way in. Everybody hear me? You want to?
I'll go tell them, Jim.
Yeah, just let people know. Somebody leave a phone in the porta-john.
Don't run over the 100-milers that are coming down the hill or up the road.
Dogs. I know there's going to be a couple of dogs maybe running today, but if you're running with your dog, just it must be on a leash at all times, physical leash, no electronic leash. And we ask that you start towards the back of the pack so you don't trip anybody up. And then we'll have plenty of room there to set up.
Perfect, thank you.
Morning, Captain. How are you?
I'm doing reasonably well so far, but the day is young. There's still plenty of time for things to go horribly wrong.
Thank you.
There will also be mountain bikes out. Feel free to clothesline them. Crew is not allowed at the Bridger Bay aid station. There's no parking there. Plus it's in the middle of the night. You'll wake up all the Boy Scouts. Follow me! Okay, this next one I'm calling the Kelly Agnew rule. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, run!
Okay, I'm running for like 5 minutes and I'm gonna walk.